basically what the Fed is saying, and they'll never say it publicly, is we don't care about the dollar's value. We're going to let the dollar print until people won't take it in. I mean, that's a really harsh statement, but that's the trend that they're indicating they're going.
You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
Silver is on the brink of a massive surge. And if you've been sleeping on it, you might want to pay attention now. With geopolitical tensions escalating, interest rates dropping, and industrial demand for silver skyrocketing, experts like David Morgan are saying that it is finally getting the respect it deserves. Now you might think silver making a big move sounds far-fetched, but let me break down why we could be looking at a major price shift. So stick around, because what's coming next could change how you think about silver forever.
Financial newsletter business, right, at pretty much the beginning. I mean, gold was at 252 in the year 2000. We started about 99. And, if you would have said gold's going to 2,500 back then, you looked like a bit of a kook. And I actually said it would. In fact, I said the fair price for gold, not undervalued, not overvalued, but fair valued, was $2,500. And I did that math. It's very, very simple. You take the amount of base money and you divide it by dollars per ounce, the amount of ounces that the Treasury purportedly has in Fort Knox. That gives you a number, and that number is 2,500. Today, Jim Rickards has done the same exact arithmetic. It's just a division problem. And it is around 27,000. So interestingly, we've gone up tenfold in 2.5 decades, and approximately 25 years. But at the end of the great inflations, you get an acceleration, and that's where we're at. We are starting, I'm pretty certain, the last phase up, which means you get the biggest move percentage-wise in a rather short amount of time. I mean, it's actually Jeff Christian that said it the first time, that said 90% of the move comes in the last 10% of the time. I don't think Jeff has said that for 10 or 15 years, but I've said it many, many times, and it doesn't guarantee it's exactly that, but it gives people the idea, not just in the metals markets. You see an acceleration in many markets. It's the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And, oh, my goodness, I got to get into real estate. I can't buy houses. I'll buy real estate investment trusts, and on it goes. So we are now making new highs. And when you make a new high, it gives everybody confidence. So people that own gold probably won't sell because they're expecting another new high. So the float gets very tight. People don't want to sell. So if you only have new buyers, that adds to the price, which does what? Makes another new high. And so we're in that mode for gold. We're not in anything in the FOMO mode yet. The banks are the main buyers. The East are still the main buyers. But as the dollar degrades more and more, and the bond market has more and more troubles, and perhaps interest rates come down for a while and have to go back up due to inflationary pressures, or maybe the market itself, I think you'll get that next let's say, new buying into gold that we will see. I just don't.
As geopolitical tensions flare up, particularly in the Middle East, silver is becoming the go-to safe haven asset for many investors. Just recently, Iran launched over 200 missiles at Israel, triggering a chain reaction of fears about a wider conflict. And when uncertainty rises on the global stage, silver often shines brightest. Investors are flocking to it as a reliable store of value, driving up prices to near $31.50 per ounce. But this isn't just a short-term reaction. These tensions could be the beginning of a larger trend that pushes silver even higher. The question is, will you be prepared when silver takes off?
Yeah, I think silver's a tougher one to analyze for anyone. That's how I see it. And silver's done well this year. It's on par, slightly ahead of gold, depending, what weekly close we look at. But what I do think is that technically it's at almost a breakout point. We're pushing almost 32 today as we do the interview. I know you like to keep kind of evergreen, but that's a fact. And when 33 is about the limit, where we have some resistance. After that, there's very little resistance. So we could go from, say, 33 handle to 43 handle relatively quickly, because like gold, it wouldn't be making a new high. We'll be making a new high over the last, 15 years or whatever it's been, but it wouldn't be making a new high from an all-time high perspective. But the point is that in both cases, there's very little resistance to the upside. Gold, there's none because it's never been this price before. With silver, there's some, but it's so little it almost doesn't exist. So that means all the people that own it at 33 have finally got there. Maybe they bought it at that, back in 2011, are holding it now. They've held this long. Why not hold longer? So again, it tightens up the market, new buying. And silver is such a small market, and you got this constant demand on silver that you don't have in gold. And that is the industrial demand just is a steady eddy, and it keeps growing year over year, and it won't go away because silver is in such need as a technological metal. And with the green energy push, there's a demand that it could ebb and flow, but really the projections are for it to just keep increasing. So I do think by the end of the year, I said in the January issue, which I'm almost obligated to do, what do I think for the prices of gold and silver this year? I said $2,500 gold. Well, we're past that. And I said $30 plus silver, And really, when I wrote that, I've been beaten up so many times in this market and leaning toward the conservative side. I mean, when you look at where silver started, a $30 call was a big call. I mean, that was, almost extreme. But now to revamp it here in September, I think that we'll be above 33. We'll be at 40. I don't know. I'll call 35. I think we could get a 35 handle. We'll be there for 1 day, 1 week, for 1 month. To push up to 40, I don't know. Once we get above 33, what I do know is it will accelerate. Maybe not the next week or two, or maybe it won't even be a month, maybe 2 months. And, people will get on your comments and say, that Morgan, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're 3 months or 2 months past 33 and we're, trading between 30 and 33. What the heck was he talking about? But once it gets going and establishes above 33, and it won't take long, it'll go. I don't think it'd take a couple months. I think it will really move. And then we're going to have to find out where the market clears. The stale longs that bought it at 30 and now it's at 40. Oh, I'm done with silver. I bought too much. I don't like it. I'm getting my money back. I want to do this with my money, whatever. So there will be some of that. But once that clears, then we could really accelerate, especially depending on what goes on geopolitically, politically, and in the financial market.
Now, let's talk about the Federal Reserve. Yep, the sane folks who have been playing with interest rates like a yo-yo. So here's the deal. For the longest time, we've been dealing with high interest rates. That's bad news for assets like silver that don't pay you a return, making it less attractive compared to, say, bonds or stocks. But here's the twist. The Fed is finally hitting the brakes on rate hikes, and even better, they're starting to lower rates. Now, you might be thinking, okay, cool, but what does this have to do with silver? Well, it has everything to do with silver. When interest rates drop, holding onto cash or bonds becomes less appealing, and investors start looking for alternatives. That's where silver comes in, a non-yielding but historically solid asset. Lower interest rates basically give silver a major boost as more and more people see it as a safe bet, especially when the market's looking shaky. And here's the kicker. The Fed is signaling that we're going to see even more rate cuts in the coming months. That means the opportunity cost of holding silver is shrinking fast, making it one of the hottest assets to own right now. So while others are waiting around for bonds to start paying off, those in the know are stacking silver. The question is, will you follow their lead or wait until it's too late?
So glad you brought that up. I mean, I do have, a lot of age, but with age comes some hopefully wisdom and at least experience. And this is what I saw in the 70s to the 1980 top was near the acceleration phase. You started to see it become more mainstream. You started to see, channels talking gold or talking to mining executives and stuff like that, where it was really just kind of not even on the radar for a long, long time, even though the market was moving up and up and up. And I'm witness that again. I think the clearest one that was kind of an aha moment for me was when Costco started selling gold. I said, we are absolutely, definitely 100% in my opinion, strong, studied opinion, the final phase of a major bull market. when you have an outfit like Costco that sells gold to the public, because this builds awareness. I mean, most people don't even think about gold. And it's funny because people have never invested, or people that maybe save their money or keep it in T-bills or whatever. And then they say, well, how do you buy gold? Like, buying gold is so difficult. No, gold and silver are the easiest purchases you can make. You don't have to open a brokerage account. You don't have to do a background investigation. You don't have to give them a photo ID. You walk in with cash, or you send a check or wire to Miles Franklin or whomever, and you buy it. And most people don't know that. They don't know how easy it is to buy real money. But that, I'm glad you asked the question. So that to me is a very positive indicator that everyone can look at and say, oh, yeah, Costco is selling gold. Oh, yeah, Bank of America is talking about $3,000 gold. And this is what pushes the market higher, because you need new buyers in any market. And you only have such a base that's has conviction, that's going to save in gold or stack silver, and that's great. And that market grows slightly. But the real new market is what you want, where people wake up and say, you know what, I have a 401k, but I don't have any gold in my portfolio. And I know from Mr. Morgan and many others that everybody should have at least a 10% exposure to the metal. I'm going to do this with this, this money or my savings.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about the industrial side of silver. Because, believe it or not, silver isn't just sitting around waiting for investors to scoop it up. It's actually a critical part of some of the biggest industries in the world, especially in China. China's economy might be slowing down in some areas, but when it comes to industrial applications, silver is still in high demand, and here's why. Silver plays a major role in everything from electronics to solar panels. And with China being one of the world's biggest manufacturing hubs, they're using silver at an incredible rate. You've got the tech industry, the push for green energy, and even electric vehicles. All of them depend heavily on silver. So even though China's overall manufacturing growth has been a little shaky, their need for silver in these critical industries is only getting stronger. What's even more interesting is that China's government has been pumping up fiscal and monetary stimulus to keep their economy moving, which means more investment in these sectors. The result? A steady demand for silver that's helping push its price higher. And let's not forget, when China's demand kicks in, it creates a ripple effect across the globe, driving silver prices up everywhere. So while some people might be focused on gold or other assets, savvy investors are keeping their eye on silver, because with China's industrial demand, silver's rise is far from over. The real question is, are you seeing the bigger picture here?
Gold is a metal of uncertainty. I mean, it's a barometer of the overall belief system in the economy, whether it's local or state or federal or global. And gold actually does best in deflation, although most people don't even believe that. But if you read Roy Jastrom's work, The Golden Constant, he goes back to the 1300s and does it on a basket of commodities. And he proves basically that gold is best in deflation. Martin Armstrong is good at pointing out you can have an increase in the money supply and, gold does nothing. And that's what happened for 20 years, from the peak in January 21st, 1980 till it started in, the year 2000. I think it does. The money supply does affect it, in my view, but that's not the only thing that affects it. And uncertainty is really what affects it the most. And that's a big word that covers, uncertainty about what the dollar is going to do in the future, uncertainty about what's happening in Ukraine, uncertainty about what's happening in the Middle East, uncertainty about oil supply, uncertainty about food supply, uncertainty. And that, I think, is not, I'm not trying to, duck the question. I'm actually trying to give more thinking to the public about uncertainty. People buy gold for different reasons, but usually there's a connection to, I'm not sure about my personal future. I'm not sure about my pension. I'm not sure about my government. I'm not sure about, the banks. I'm not sure the banks are going to not, all those things. So I think that's, even though it's a broad brush stroke, I think it's actually a more accurate answer than just saying, we've increased the money supply and therefore gold's going to go.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. Silver's role in the green energy revolution. You've probably heard all the buzz about solar power and electric vehicles, EVs being the future, right? Well, guess what's absolutely essential in making all of that happen? Yep, silver. Let's start with solar panels. Every time a solar panel is made, silver is used to capture and convert sunlight into electricity. In fact, it's one of the best conductors out there, which is why it's so critical to renewable energy. As countries push harder for cleaner energy solutions to combat climate change, demand for solar panels is skyrocketing, and with it, the demand for silver. And it doesn't stop there. Electric vehicles, which are set to dominate the roads in the coming years, also rely on silver in their electrical systems. Whether it's wiring, batteries, or the high-tech gadgets inside these cars, silver is the unsung hero keeping things running smoothly. So think about it. With governments and corporations around the world pledging to go green, we're talking about a massive, long-term increase in demand for silver. And this isn't just a temporary spike. This is the future. Silver isn't just valuable because of its role as a safe haven asset. It's becoming irreplaceable in the global shift to sustainable energy. The bottom line is, while people are debating which way the markets will go, silver's role in green energy is quietly pushing it higher. It's not just a bet on today, it's a bet on the next decade. So the question is, are you ready to invest in the future of energy?
Absolutely. I mean, going back to what Mr. Armstrong said on a podcast, recent one, was that gold and silver were pushing higher and higher, and then the war in Afghanistan broke out, and it went even higher. And I think you have something similar here. And I want to back up on that question. You didn't ask it directly, but when the U.S. government basically put the sanctions on Russia and said, "Look, your 300 billion or whatever it was in their account was basically null and void." That was, in my view, one of the worst mistakes made. I mean, you have to be neutral on money. You can't take other people's money like that. And that was a wake-up call to the world that we can't trust the United States. What are they going to do with our dollars? Are they going to sterilize them or not? And so that was a big impetus for everybody outside of the U.S. that, has their own currency to say, wait a minute, what if they don't like what we're doing? What are they going to do to us? So big mistake. And so what do? Well, you go to the universal money that's accepted everywhere. I mean, as GATA has said many times, and I've piggybacked on it, is, when you're a jet fighter pilot and you got a survival kit, they give you a gold coin. They don't give you a Federal Reserve note. If you have to bail out, that coin will spend anywhere you bail out of, South America, North America, Europe, Eastern Europe, whatever. So coming back, yes, it's definitely a big factor. And above and beyond that, who's buying it? Well, of course, it's the East. It's China and Russia, that are buying it, more or less hand over fist, and the central banks. I mean, I think everyone that's knowledgeable about real money and economic history, monetary history, knows we're getting near what Rafi Faber calls the end game. And the end game can end several ways, but generally it's a currency crisis where the currencies aren't accepted. And if you don't accept the dollar as final payment, what will you accept? The answer is gold. Of course, the bankers know this. They know this. And so what are they going to do? And the answer is, I don't know. I suspect they're going to try to make a new system with a digital currency and probably try it to be unbacked. And if that doesn't work, then they'll tie it to gold, because gold will work, or at least the psychology of gold should or would work, that has in the past. So that's a likely scenario. So I might have over-talked it, Elijah, but it's an indicator, again, a barometer of the future is more and more uncertain, not more and more stable. It's more and more unstable. There's more and more problems. There's more and more discontent, and there's more and more reason to get something solid, tangible that you could trust, because more and more things are becoming untrustworthy, including, local governments or state, federal governments. I mean, it's a geopolitical question. I'll just drone on a bit more. Most of the inhabitants of the planet are unhappy with their governments. It's obvious this tyrannical, authoritarian, you can only do and say what I tell you can do and say, is pretty pervasive. And this is upsetting to the people at large.
All right, now we're diving into something that not a lot of people talk about openly: market manipulation, and sentiment. If you've been following silver for a while, you've probably heard rumors about big players pulling the strings behind the scenes. And honestly, David Morgan has been one of the loudest voices calling this out. Here's the thing. Silver is a small market compared to other assets, which means it's easier for large institutions to influence its price, whether through short selling or other tactics. But here's the twist. Recently, sentiment around silver has started to shift. For years, big banks and institutions have been keeping silver prices suppressed. Why? Because it serves their interests. But now, we're seeing cracks in that system. More and more people are starting to recognize silver's true value, and that's making it harder for the manipulators to keep prices down. David Morgan has pointed out that this shift in sentiment could be the beginning of something much bigger. As more investors wake up to silver's potential, we're seeing less manipulation and more organic price growth. And as we know, once a market's true potential is unleashed, it can move fast, especially in a commodity like silver where supply is tight. So, while it's tempting to believe the price is where it is because that's just the market, don't be fooled. We're seeing a shift in power from big players to everyday investors who see the real value of silver. The question is, will you jump in before the manipulation fully unravels, or wait until prices soar even higher?
It's a little scary because in a in a capital market like we have, where you have a reserve currency and you have a debt and credit market, and it all plays together, and it's all based on trust or confidence, and the confidence being that the dollar will always be worth something no matter what. And if that confidence is lost, then you could go into a inflationary or even a hyperinflationary mode. And right now, we're kind of on the edge of that, whether that confidence will continue or not. And this is the basis of the whole system. So I'm not sure, what the right answer is. It's a really tough one, whether we lose our ability to continue to print money. And at times, you could print money and print wealth. I've always said you can't print your way out of this, but we can for a very long time. But I think we're getting to the end of the game, the end of the road. The can can't go any further. And that place is a psychological event. It's not a mathematical event. It is mathematically impossible to pay it off, but that hasn't caused disruptions in the market where we get limit up in gold for a week, or a non-delivery of gold or a non-delivery of silver, or something that would be so apparent to a casual observer that something's drastically wrong. They had to shut down the exchanges because a gold delivery wasn't made or something along those lines. And I'm not projecting that is going.
Let's take a trip down memory lane and look at where silver's been, because understanding its past can give us a pretty good idea of where it's heading. Now, historically, silver has been known for some wild price swings. Back in 2011, silver hit almost $1.50 an ounce during a massive bull run. Since then, we've seen it cool off. But here's the thing. Silver's setup today looks eerily similar to those past big runs. David Morgan has been tracking silver for decades, and he's not shy about making bold predictions. He's mentioned that silver could easily push to $1.35 or even $1.40 in the near future. And honestly, when you look at the trends, that's not as far-fetched as it sounds. We've got growing demand from industrial sectors, uncertainty from geopolitical tensions, and a Federal Reserve that's loosening its grip on interest rates. All perfect conditions for silver to rally. And here's the real kicker. Silver has a history of making fast, explosive moves. Just like in 2011, when silver shot up seemingly overnight, we could be on the verge of seeing another big spike. The market is incredibly tight, and with more investors piling in, we might see a scenario where demand far outstrips supply. And when that happens, prices can skyrocket. The question you've got to ask yourself is, are you ready for the next big silver move? Because if history tells us anything, when silver starts to climb, it doesn't wait around for long.
Well, I think coming back to the stock market, it's a weighted index. And so all you have to do is manipulate, 5, 6, 7 stocks. You can do that in a lot of leveraged ways. So you can, make your dollar work harder by leveraging it. And you can move the indexes around. I mean, this is what's taken place for a long time. And so, as you just stated so clearly, what is the real perception? Just because we get the rah-rah cheerleaders on the financial channels talking about a new all-time high in the indices, does that mean the economy's good? And if the answer is no, and it's an absolute no. But yet the investor community largely believes or wants to believe or wants to pretend that those big numbers, those new highs in the indices actually mean that we're doing well. All we're doing well is playing this money game. But if the money game turns out to be, let's say, repriced, where these dollars that you've accumulated in your bank account really are not worth as much as you thought they were because of the monetary event, cancellation of debt, refusal to pay, a bank closure. I mean, these are one-offs. These are a tail end of the curve. And I know that. What I'm stating, though, is it's happened in the past. And the trend is moving that direction. And that's the reason for these cutting interest rates that worries most people that understand finance, is basically what the Fed is saying, and they'll never say it publicly, is we don't care about the dollar's value. We're going to let the dollar print until people won't take it in. I mean, that's a really harsh statement, but that's the trend that they're indicating they're going to do. Remember, we had ZIRP, the zero interest rate policy. Interest rates is a function of several things. It's supposed to be market priced. It wasn't. It was done by the government. And really, if the future value is zero, what's the value of it now? I mean, you put money into work at interest because inflation takes over. The value in the future is less than it will be today. So you want to make up for that inflationary bias built into the Keynesian system. But if you're saying it's not worth anything in the future, interest-wise, then you may as well spend it all now.
Now, let's talk about something we've all felt at one point or another, the fear of missing out, or as we all know it, FOMO. You see, as silver prices start inching higher, more and more people are getting that itch thinking, what if I miss this opportunity? And honestly, they're not wrong to feel that way. When it comes to precious metals, and especially silver, history has shown us that once prices start moving up, they can move fast, like really fast. We're already seeing silver hover around $31.50 per ounce, and with all the factors we've discussed, it could very well push beyond $35 or even $40 in the near future. Once that happens, the floodgates open and investors who were sitting on the sidelines rush in. That's when FOMO really kicks in, and prices could accelerate even further. And here's where it gets interesting. With silver, it's not just about big institutional investors. Everyday people are starting to wake up to the potential of silver as both a safe haven and an industrial powerhouse. The combination of safe haven demand, green energy, and loosening Fed policies is creating the perfect storm. The longer you wait, the more you risk getting caught in a buying frenzy when everyone realizes they'd missed the boat. So what's it going to be? Are you going to wait until the hype takes over and silver is out of reach? Or will you make a move before FOMO drives the market even higher?
And also, just looking at reality, I mean, it's very obvious. I mean, if your payment for your car insurance goes up, your house insurance goes up, your medical insurance goes up, the grocery bill is higher and higher. The quality that you're getting, I mean, you might get a bag of chips of something and it's the same name brand, but yet the same price, but it's gone from 12 ounces to 7 ounces. Something's wrong. I mean, you don't have to be anybody special just to see the opposite. So that's the reality. And so people see that without being educated. And then once they see that, they may look for answers. What is inflation, or why is this happening, or what happens in inflation, or what happens when inflation continues for a long time, or any of those type of questions you might put in the search engine. And the system is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. But that doesn't mean, we the people can't make it right, or we can't, care about our own selves and our neighbors to rectify what we can control. And we can't control food prices. We can't control what our boss is going to pay us, but we can get a handle on some of our expenses, not all of them. And I think one of the biggest detriments, the way I see it, is that the credit system is pushed so hard on the newer generations. I mean, when I started, in my career job way back, there was just very little credit available to the average person. I mean, Diners Club was about it. Then it's quickly morphed into American Express, and then you had, Visa and MasterCard. But even back then, people used credit more carefully than they do now. Well, I really want this now. I think I'll wait and save or buy it, or at least have a down payment of half or whatever. And now it's sort of, money doesn't have the, let's say, the metal that it used to, meaning that people are a little more conservative with what they spent. Now it's everything. Well, here, I make this much. What's my credit rating? I want it now. I'll buy it now. It's a swipe of my phone. It's 2 clicks of my phone. I mean, a lot of kids just pay everything with their phone. They don't even bother with a plastic card. I was buying something the other day. I forget what it was. And it was in a restaurant, and the gal took my card, and she was kind of mad it wasn't a tapped card. I had to put it in the slot. But anyway, maybe I'm off point, but I do think that as things contract more and more, money becomes less and less valuable, that people do what you asked me, and that is to reevaluate what they have and what they want. And it's going to separate people to make adjustments that maybe they aren't comfortable making, but are needed for this economy to come back to reality.
So, after all the talk about geopolitical tensions, Fed policy shifts, industrial demand, and even market manipulation, here's the real bottom line. Silver is finally getting the respect it deserves. For too long, silver has played second fiddle to gold, but right now, the tides are turning. David Morgan and many other experts have been predicting this moment for years, when silver's true potential would finally shine through, and we're seeing it happen right before our eyes. Silver is no longer just a hedge against uncertainty. It's becoming a critical player in the future of energy, technology, and industry. Whether it's powering the green revolution or serving as a safe haven asset during volatile times, silver is proving its value. And with prices pushing past $31.50, and experts like Morgan predicting highs of $35, $40, or even beyond, it's clear that silver is on the move. The stars have aligned. Geopolitical uncertainty, the Federal Reserve's policy shifts, rising industrial demand, and even a shift in market sentiment are all driving silver's rise. But remember, this is not financial advice. The decision to invest should be made carefully and based on your own situation. But one thing's for sure, silver is no longer an underdog. It's stepping into the spotlight. The real question now is, will you recognize its value before it's too late? And before you go, if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's plenty more to come, and you don't want to miss it.